Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 33 of Life Lessons and Combat Sports. I'm your host, Eric Hamidi. Thank you for joining me, and I got one more episode for you for the month of May as part of MMA. It's been an interesting development with this particular episode. I mean, I went into this thinking that I was going to talk about something else with regards to this particular person, but then in the last few days, I learned something that even I didn't know about, and to be honest, I felt like it was a good subject matter, or just like I thought it would be a good topic to discuss when it comes to this particular subject matter. So one thing that I've kind of noticed about this episode is that I'm kind of killing multiple birds with one stone, because yes, I am getting one more episode out for the month of May for the theme of this month. But another thing that I'm doing is that I'm kind of getting a little bit of a head start, because the thing that I'm talking about today is an anniversary. The actual anniversary will be on June 6th. Basically, what I am discussing is unfortunately a passing of an individual, someone who was very memorable and a key figure within the world of mixed martial arts. And, I thought this would be a good way to pay homage to this person and to pay tribute to this person, especially with the thing that I learned about this particular individual. Even though I am getting a little bit of a head start on this, where the actual anniversary is not until several days later, I wanted to get a, jump start on it. And to be honest, the way I sort of see this is that this is this week in MMA history. And then also, the day that I'm releasing this is actually the anniversary of a particular event that happened. So I'm excited because, kind of like my last episode, is that this is somebody who I have not talked about yet on the podcast. So here we go. The particular person that I'm going to be talking about in this episode is one Kevin Ferguson. Oh wait, actually, you'll know him better as one Kimbo Slice. Just when you want to talk about mega stars in the world of mixed martial arts, I mean, Kimbo Slice is one of those individuals. The thing that I find fascinating about Kimbo Slice is the fact that this was a guy who was a really big star within the realm of MMA, but this was somebody who was able to accomplish that outside of the realms of the UFC, which is the dominant brand in mixed martial arts. I mean, it's just like, we don't really see a lot of instances like that where you have an individual who really built their name outside of it, because honestly, when you look at Kimbo Slice and the kinds of things that he was able to accomplish, or the kind of attention that he drew, I mean, this rivals the biggest stars within MMA and also some of the biggest stars in the UFC when it comes to the sport of MMA. And that includes individuals like Brock Lesnar, Ronda Rousey, Conor McGregor, and just, a bunch of others, GSP, Anderson Silva to an extent, but like they never penetrated the mainstream like those individuals did. But that's just a testament to the kind of aura or the kind of look that Kimbo Slice had. I mean, just when you look at Kimbo Slice, I mean, he just had this look of a fighter, just with the beard and then the name, and then just like his overall demeanor. I mean, there's a reason why he was such a big ratings draw, and just like, it's almost to the level where it hasn't really been matched in certain regards. And the only reason I'm saying that is just from my own personal experience talking to some friends of mine. They knew about Kimbo Slice, and he just like got their attention as well. So it just shows you the star power of this individual. And just like when you look really at the history of MMA, you can't deny the type of impact that Kimbo had. But I think something that's kind of interesting that I've been learning about him is, quite honestly, some of the more personal details about him, and just kind of learning more about the kind of person that he is. And just honestly, Kimbo is one of those individuals who, unfortunately kind of falls into that category. Well, not kind of, he does fall in the category of individuals who just, unfortunately, I'm never going to get a chance to interview, because they're, the hopes that I have for this podcast is to eventually make it to the point where I get to talk to some of these individuals that I talk about. But unfortunately, Kimbo Slice is not going to be one of those people. I mean, he has a fascinating story when you really think about it. I mean, Kimbo was somebody who grew up in Florida, and the way he kind of, it's kind of interesting is that he actually had dreams of being a football player. He was playing throughout high school and all that stuff, and just was, developing his craft, or just, making strides in that. But a huge hurdle that Kimbo had in his football career was the fact that Hurricane Andrew hit in 1992, which really just destroyed the landscape in Florida. So that really, according to my research, it just wrecked the landscape. So the school that Kimbo was playing for at the time, they canceled a lot of their football games. So that really derailed a lot of Kimbo's efforts, or his games, and just like all that stuff. I mean, he was still continuing to try to make headway in that. He did play a little bit in college, and also he had some tryouts and then played in the preseason with the Miami Dolphins. But ultimately, they didn't end up signing him, and just like that whole thing didn't work out. So once his time with them was over, Kimbo kind of struggled to make ends meet, really. So from what I learned is that Kimbo, he was basically bouncing around between some jobs of being a limo driver or being a bouncer for a club and all this stuff, but it wasn't, I mean, he was struggling. I mean, he talks about how he was living in his car for a little bit of time, and just the way that he got into fighting, which leads into how Kimbo Slice really developed his name and his reputation, or his legend and all that stuff, was that he ran into an old friend of his, and he suggested to him that you should take up fighting. So the route that Kimbo Slice went into was he started fighting in the streets and having these backyard fights and all that stuff that basically were recorded and then put up online. According to my research, this started in 2003. That was the first time that Kimbo's fights were recorded and then put up online. And just something that I find kind of fascinating about that is that this was before YouTube. So there wasn't that kind of reach that he would eventually get later on. But I think that just speaks to the testament of the kind of attention that Kimbo drew, and then also just his overall aura, his overall look and all that stuff. And just, I'm doing a lot of talking about his look, but I mean, when you look at the image of Kimbo Slice, it's hard to deny that that is the look of a fighter. And just, I remember when I started watching MMA, I would read these magazines and I would see these features on him or what have you, just like these one-page features. And just like, even back then when I saw that and I saw his picture, I thought to myself, man, that is a scary looking dude, or just like, that is an intense dude and all that stuff. I mean, just, he was the epitome of it. So I think it really shows what he was capable of, and just, his star potential. And then a few years later, YouTube is actually, YouTube comes along, and then even more people watch his fights. And just, that just was even more of a testament to how much, and like how many eyeballs he drew and all that stuff. It just, I don't know, people were just really mesmerized by it. And it just, it's fascinating looking at the rise of Kimbo Slice, and just kind of like, he came in at the right time. He was like right place, right time, because not only was the internet developing into becoming a staple of our society like it is today, but he was also exploding in popularity when MMA was becoming really popular, which is what he would eventually turn to. So I've heard plenty of stories of people just going online and watching his fights and just being just completely drawn to it, and just, the viewership just kept growing and growing, and there'd be millions of views and all that stuff. So that's where the legend of Kimbo Slice developed. And then basically what happens is that he transitions into mixed martial arts. He makes his pro debut in 2007. He gets signed by this organization called Elite XC, and they really, I've heard some analysts say this, that they really put all their eggs in one basket when it comes to Kimbo Slice, and that's, that's kind of what happened. But I mean, Kimbo drew a lot of attention for Elite XC, and in a way, I mean, for better or worse, and just like, I guess it might be better to say that in some ways it did really help Elite XC, but also in some ways it did kind of hurt him. But that was a way for Elite XC to kind of make its name in this environment where you had the UFC, which was slowly becoming the dominant brand in MMA. It was a way for them to kind of make a stake for themselves, and also, just kind of as the new company, because they only started in 2007, basically it was their way to try to make their way within the MMA landscape. And just, that was at a time, like I said, when MMA was really exploding, and there were just a lot of different organizations coming up at that time. And just Elite XC was the company that acquired Kimbo Slice's services. And just, there's a few reasons why Kimbo didn't go into the UFC. I mean, some of that kind of stems from the fact that the UFC, they were trying to clean up their image and basically get away from that, street fighter, brawler, no rules kind of like look to themselves, and get away from like the barbarism. And, they kind of felt as though Kimbo Slice was a regression to that. So that's why, at least at that time, they didn't want to be in the Kimbo Slice business. So Kimbo got his home in Elite XC. And I remember eventually Elite XC, they actually got a deal with CBS to air their events on there. So that's a thing that's noteworthy about Elite XC, is the fact that they were the first promotion to get on network television, to get on broadcast television. And just, I find that noteworthy in the sense that the company that can lay claim to that is not in fact the UFC. And just, whichever organization got that deal aside, that was just a big deal. That was just a big deal in general for the sport, because this was the first time we were getting on network. This was the first time that the sport was getting on network television. So there was going to be an even bigger reach than what they were getting already. So that was a momentous occasion, and just Kimbo Slice was a huge component of those shows. The first event that they had, Elite XC Primetime, today is the 18-year anniversary of that event. So it's like their debut show on CBS. Of course, they were going to have Kimbo Slice in the main event. I mean, it would kind of be foolish not to. And I remember, for me, I was excited about that, just given the fact that it was another MMA promotion where I was going to be able to watch them, because up until that point, Elite XC had only done shows on CBS, they had only done shows on Showtime, and I didn't have that at the time, so I couldn't watch their events. So for me, the interest that I had for those events was kind of like twofold. It was, one, just being a fan of the sport itself. I viewed that as a new promotion and another product for me to watch for the sport that I really enjoyed. And then also, it gave me the opportunity to see for myself how Kimbo Slice was going to do, or how he was as a fighter and all that stuff. But I guess, like, I'm pointing all this stuff out because the show kind of had a little bit of a difficult time getting viewers when Kimbo wasn't on the show, because Elite XC, they did 3 events on CBS. They did one in May of 2008, they did one in July, and then their last one was in October. Kimbo wasn't on the October show, so it didn't get as much attention, but for me, I watched it regardless just because I wanted to watch mixed martial arts, and it didn't matter to me what the promotion was. But regardless, I enjoyed watching that event. So Kimbo had one more fight for Elite XC in October of 2008, where, I mean, there's a whole story behind that, just as far as him originally being scheduled to fight Ken Shamrock, who was a mixed martial arts legend himself, but that fell through, so they had a last-minute replacement in Seth Petrozelli stepping in for the main event, and just the whole fallout that kind of happened with that whole fight and everything. I mean, that's a story that unfortunately I don't have time to get into. I'll save that for another episode. I mean, just generally speaking, there's so much to tell about Kimbo Slice that I can't get to all of it in just this one episode, so I'll save some of the stuff as a teaser for a later time. I mean, I'm sure nobody's gonna complain about another Kimbo Slice episode. So Kimbo has his last fight in Elite XC in October of 2008, and basically the problem that the organization had was that they were just spending a ton of money and not getting that back quickly enough, so ultimately Elite XC folded. Where Kimbo Slice went from here was he got on the UFC's reality show, The Ultimate Fighter, in the fall of 2009. That's when the season that he was on aired on Spike TV, which is now Paramount Network. And just, I mean, that was a huge season. I mean, like, honestly, when I look at The Ultimate Fighter season 10, I kind of feel like the show is never gonna reach that kind of peak again. And just when you look at the different elements of that season, I mean, it's because this was this aired in the fall of 2009, so this was in the middle of that whole boom period for MMA. Kimbo Slice was on the show. This was still at a time where television was still the main source of consuming content. If you wanted to watch stuff, you watched it mainly on TV. Also, I think a big factor in all of this is the fact that you had Quinton Jackson and Rashad Evans as coaches for that season, where they had this intense rivalry, and honestly, I feel like they're MMA stars in and of themselves, because when you look at pay-per-views that the UFC has had, and you look at pay-per-views that have had 1 million buys or more, a show that was headlined by Quinton Jackson and Rashad is one of those pay-per-views. And I think that's an important stat. Like, basically what I'm getting at is that there have only been a handful of pay-per-views that the UFC has had where it had 1 million buys or more, where nowhere on the card did it feature Brock Lesnar, Conor McGregor, or Ronda Rousey. And that event that Rashad and Rampage fought each other, that was one of them. So I think that speaks volumes. So, I mean, of course, the show had the show drew a high rating, which I forgot to mention about that Elite XC primetime show. For the main event for Kimbo's fight, that drew around 6.5 million viewers. So when you had Kimbo on, the ratings were high. So The Ultimate Fighter was no different. Ultimately, he doesn't end up winning that show, but he does get a couple fights in the UFC. He goes 1-1 in that organization. He fought in December of 2009, won that one, and then he fought again in May of 2010. And it just, unfortunately, he lost that one, and then he was released from the organization after that. I mean, I guess really the UFC didn't feel like they could, I guess they couldn't really do much with him, or felt like they couldn't at the time. I mean, honestly, I feel like if this were today, they definitely would have kept Kimbo Slice on the roster. It's just the UFC they were just in a different place at the time, so they had different standards. Where Kimbo Slice went from here was that he competed in boxing for a little bit, And then in 2015, he ends up signing with Bellator, which was the #2 MMA promotion in the United States. He has a fight with them in June of 2015 against Ken Shamrock, so they finally made that happen for this particular event. He won that fight, and then in February of 2016, that's when Kimbo Slice had his last fight. He won that against this guy named Dada 5000. I mean, I don't really know much about him. I mean, just that's a whole story in and of itself that I could say for a different time. So that was his last fight for the promotion, because unfortunately for Kimbo, he ended up passing away on June 6, 2016 due to heart failure. And just, I find that time frame to be really, I guess it's just crazy, because that was a few days removed from the passing of Muhammad Ali. So within this very quick time frame, you had two just legends in their own way within the realm of combat sports passing away basically at the same time. And just, you know, when I look at 2016, I mean, there were just a lot of people who passed away, a lot of public figures who passed away at that time, just Prince, among many others. And then, I mean, to a lesser extent, I also feel like 2016 was a big loss for people within the combat sports realm, because we had Muhammad Ali pass away that year. We had Kimbo Slice. In February of that year, we had Kevin Randleman pass away, unfortunately, which I talked about in episode 24, and just a few other individuals. So that was kind of, that was, I don't know, it's just crazy. And just when you look into Kimbo Slice as a person, you really learn how kind of a person he was, and just how much he loved his family, and just how he wanted to take care of them, and just kind of like, you just learn about the person, and you just kind of like learn about the good qualities about him, which I thought was kind of noteworthy. I mean, that's kind of, in my experience, that's what you saw when you looked into his life a little bit more, or just when you watch, I mean, you kind of got a sense of that when he was on The Ultimate Fighter, just kind of like people either saying that when you get to know him, he's not what you think he is, or just kind of like seeing how when he's on the show, how open he is to learning and improving and all that stuff. And just, some of that stuff was what I was originally going to talk about in this episode with regards to Kimbo Slice, but then I stumbled across something doing my research for this where I was all like, oh damn, I did not know this about him. So I don't know if you watching know about this, but I'm about to share this with you. And just like, I think this is something that can be of value to people, and just what's interesting, because like what I've been at least trying to do with this podcast recently is to really share something about these people that maybe you don't know about. And when I came across this, I was just thinking, man, I have to go with it, because I guess now that I'm sort of thinking about this, it's kind of impacting me in a big way. And just basically what I'm talking about is Kimbo had 6 kids. And one of his kids is named Kevlar. That's his youngest son. And what I learned about Kevlar is that he has autism. And that just, like I've been alluding to, that just blew me away, because I was just like, damn, I did not know that about him. And, some of the content or the videos or what have you that I was watching about Kimbo, it's not like this is the first time I had seen stuff like that. But for whatever reason, they just like didn't kind of, I don't know, I didn't remember this stuff at all. So Kimbo has a son who's autistic, and there was this article that I saw from Vice that was released shortly after Kimbo passed away, where she's talking about an instance where they're at American Top Team, which is an MMA gym based out of Florida. That was the gym that Kimbo was training at the time. He is training there with his son, and his son is doing some grappling techniques and all that stuff. And in that article, they're talking about, like, she's talking about how at one point Kimbo talks about how his son is looking over at him. So I'll just say this real quick. She was talking about this featurette that Bellator was doing on Kimbo Slice. And in that video, Kimbo was talking about Kevlar. And she's describing basically how in that video, Kimbo is talking about how Kevlar will be doing his drills and he'll be practicing and all that stuff. And then every now and then, Kevlar will look over to Kimbo to see if he's watching him. And just Kimbo's talking about how they're able to connect with one another. In this article, the writer is talking about how that was a moment where they were able to connect with each other in a very significant way. And just even though there's certain struggles, or just like even though Kevlar is autistic, that was a genuinely happy moment and a good moment and a touching moment that they shared, where they were basically able to connect with one another just based on something that they both enjoyed. I guess the writer was just talking about how well, or just like how much of a good light was, like how these individuals dealing with this were presented in a good light. Like, I think that's kind of what the writer was getting at. But honestly, at its core, the writer was just talking about how nice it was that those two were able to share that moment and connect with one another on a shared interest. And just like, kind of talks about, some of the powerful good moments that a parent with an autistic child can have. The fact that Kevlar and Kimbo were able to connect in that way really speaks volumes. And I suppose one of the takeaways that I have from all of this is, I'll just throw the disclaimer out here that I'm not a parent. Like, I don't have any kids, so I can't really say this from a place of expertise and just like, who am I to say this? But I think something that's really important is to connect with your kids in a significant way, in a good way, in a healthy way, in a bonding way, in a way that you both can enjoy it, and just like, just in a meaningful way, I guess. I think that's something that's kind of important, and something that's just a really key thing to do. Like, and I guess I just say this from the perspective of like, if I myself am a parent, then I would want to just kind of like be there for my kids and just like really just do what I can to make their life better and just like make them happy, and just kind of like learn more about, some of their interests and what they like to do and all that stuff. I think that's something that if you are in fact a parent and you are watching this, that might be something to be mindful of, because I guess something that I've kind of like thought about is like how, they may have different, kind of like interests than I do, but maybe I can like engage with them a little bit, or just kind of do what I can to sort of like foster these interests and like figure out what I can do to like make them happy. I guess like this is like one of the takeaways that I have from Kimbo Slice's story, or just like this particular part of his story. I mean, like, honestly, when I have more time to kind of like think about some of this stuff, then I might be able to give better takeaways. But I mean, considering that I only learned about this stuff like 3 days before the time that I'm recording this, And these are my initial thoughts basically, and just I don't know. That's some of the stuff that I'm thinking about with regards to that. But just I think honestly, more generally, my takeaway from that whole situation is just to connect with people. And like I kind of am thinking to myself, what are ways that I can connect with people in meaningful ways? And I was kind of thinking about this on my drive home from work today. Like, how can I be a more attentive person? How can I be there more for people? How can I help them out better? And just like, what are ways that I can converse or interact with people to have a real genuine connection and bond with them? I mean, like, these are some of the things that I would like to learn from this particular instance where Kimbo and Kevlar, they are in fact able to bond with one another through training and just like, strengthen that connection. I think that's a lesson that I really want to take and carry on with like my own life. And just like, I think if you are able to find a way to connect with people in those ways, in just like in those unique ways, or just like in those ways that matter to people, I mean, that's going to make people want to gravitate to you and just like be around you and all that stuff, and just makes you that kind of like a special person and all this other stuff. And just, I don't know, this whole thing just really kind of like hits me. And I just think about how I can do all that stuff with the people who are in my own life, whether it's friends or family. I just like think about the possibilities, or just like, I don't know, in a weird way, talking about this right now, it makes me want to do that stuff. It makes me want to just seek out ways that I can connect with people in a meaningful, genuine way. It's just, I don't know, that's just kind of important to me to do. And I guess the way this episode might be a little different from others is just telling y'all what I have learned from that, and just how I'm going to carry that into my own everyday life. And just, it's, I don't know, it's kind of interesting in the sense that I feel as though I can kind of expand on some of this stuff even more so than I am right now. These are like I kind of alluded to, is that this is just my initial takeaway from this kind of stuff. And just, I don't know. I think when you are able to connect those, or when you are able to like have that strong connection with people, and connect with people in a significant way, it creates moments that people enjoy, and then people want more of that stuff. So then they're just around you. And just like, I think finding unique ways to do that, and just in particular with Kimbo Slice and his son, the way that they're able to do it is just like they're doing it in their own way that's like, unique to them, or just like specific to their situation, and just leads to, good results. I mean, like, I think this is a very powerful message to keep in mind when it comes to the story and the life of Kimbo Slice. And just, I don't know, it's just really kind of hitting me quite hard, just thinking about this in a lot of different ways. And just when you explore this topic and the subject matter, I mean, what better way is there to pay tribute to someone as colorful and memorable, or just impactful as Kimbo Slice was? One other thing that I do want to share, and I guess maybe this is like a way for me to sort of just demonstrate the kind of connection and all that stuff that I have with people. It's just like, y'all can see right here my Kimbo Slice bobblehead, and just the reason why that's really special to me is that this was actually a gift that a friend of mine gave me. I mean, he gave it as a birthday gift one time, and just, You know, it took me by surprise because this bobblehead, it was something that was like a limited edition or what have you. So it was kind of hard to come by and all that stuff. And this was made during Kimbo's time, or this was made by Bellator. This was after Kimbo Slice had passed away. But just the fact that I got this from a friend of mine who, you know, this is one of my very best friends and just somebody who I'm real tight with, to get that from him just really makes it a special memento within the realm of combat sports that I have. So I'm really grateful for it and just all that stuff, and just figure it'd be a good idea to give you all a little bit of a closer look at this bobblehead. I think it's pretty cool, so that's why I always keep it. But at least for today, that's all I have as far as the story of Kimbo Slice. I mean, there's plenty more stories to share, plenty other topics, and just more information to share about him. So this is definitely somebody who I'm gonna come back to. But that takes care of MMA for 2026. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode. Let me know what memories or what are some of your favorite moments of Kimbo Slice's career. If you have stories to share, please do so in the comments section below. Let me know what you think about the episode. Be sure to like, share, subscribe to my videos. Follow me on my social media accounts. I'm on Instagram, Life and Combat Sports, and I'm on Twitter at LCombatSports. Thanks everybody. I'll catch you on the next one. See ya.